I'm Gaz, and this is Let's Play Nebuchadnezzar. This is a Mesopotamia walker-based city-building game, kind of like the old Impressions games, Pharaoh, Zeus, that sort of thing. Let's go ahead and start the campaign. This campaign will lead you through the whole history of ancient Mesopotamia and all that civilization's milestones, from initial settlement to the fall of Babylon. Experience the story of one of the first civilizations, a civilization of imposing cities and grand monuments. Now, I have played just a little bit of the game so far, just a few missions, but we will of course be starting at the beginning in pre-pottery Neolithic A. Here's the objectives, and because there is no voiceover, I will be doing so myself. Pre-pottery Neolithic A was a Near East culture that inhabited the so-called Fertile Crescent between 10,000 and 8700 BC. There are archaeological artifacts from this culture in the Levantine and Mesopotamia. It was preceded by the Natufian culture. Typical housing for this culture consisted of circular houses sunk into the ground with stone foundations. Walls were made of unbaked bricks and the floors were made of terrazzo. The fireplace and cooking area were usually outside. This is the first time in history that we see the development of organized agriculture. Local cereals such as barley and oat were common crops. Their wild forms at first, but they were gradually replaced by cultivated variants. There were no irrigation systems yet, and so crops were only grown in areas with sufficient moisture. The development of agriculture was also made possible thanks to the first granaries, which allowed for longer storage thanks to better ventilation and protection from rodents. Granaries were placed outside at first, but were later gradually moved to special rooms in houses. Murabet is an ancient settlement on the west bank of the Euphrates in today's northern Syria. The city was inhabited between roughly 10,200 and 8,000 BC. The first settlement was during the Natufian culture. The archaeological site was flooded by Lake Assad in 1974. As way too many archaeological sites in that part of the world, fortunately. Its diameter was about 75 meters. Okay, we'll just do normal difficulty and start on an empty map. It's interesting that we have historical starts with, I guess, pre-built cities slightly that you then just continue. We'll be getting an empty map. And this game has unusually long load times for what it is. It was a little bit faster than usual because I'd already loaded up the game. Once you load it up, it gets faster, but man. Anyway, your group of nomads has finally found what they are seeking for so long. An area with sufficient fertile soil and a good climate. An ideal place for a permanent settlement, and you, as leader of the group, will have the most important role. You will organize the construction of your new home. Let's begin. Hello and welcome to Nebuchadnezzar. I am Gilgamesh, and will be your guide for the first few missions, during which I'll walk you through the basics of the game, as well as cover a few advanced techniques. Yeah, we can do this. We can skip the tutorial, but I will be doing it just for the first little bit here, just mostly to remind myself of anything that is missing. So we can move windows, and then we'll just go ahead and do whatever we can to get through the basic movement and user interface tutorials. So speed is up here. Speed up key. Oh, this is an interesting thing here. By holding down E, you can have temporary speed up, which is nice. I'll have to remember that one. Okay, so the number, which is a little bit awkward, I'm going to admit. This is the numpad, plus and minus. Allow you to speed up and slow down. And of course, there's just the plus and minus there. Okay. And then I believe it is tilde that actually pauses the game, which is another, or maybe I'm thinking of SimCity, which I'm also playing by myself. Anyway, we need to build some houses, so let's build some houses. Menus down here are slightly confusing in their order. That is not what I wanted. But you have the ability to drag out housing plots, which is nice. That's something that carried over from later Impressions city builder games. And the first settlers have arrived. Take good care of them. You will need them. And then, of course, we need to build roads. Roads are in the Infrastructure tab. Okay. So now that is done, all houses are now accessible and should welcome new settlers. Since our city is starting to grow nicely, let's have a look at mission objectives. Okay. So we just need a little bit more population, and then we need wheat and bread. Okay, so here we are. Farms. Farms need fertile soil, as one would expect. So we will build a farm here, and you can see the little green rectangle around that, or square, whatever, indicating the zoning where I can put my crops. Okay, so in order to do the crops, we have to actually click on the building and then find the build tab for the pastures, and then once we've clicked on the pasture button, then we get to pick the actual crop. I feel like this could be streamlined a little bit better without having to click so many times just to get the crop you want. And then we lay it down. Now, the tutorial is telling me, or will tell me, yeah, build 36 fields. This is an interesting thing that this game does, and it, I believe, explains it here in a minute. Yeah, okay. So, you notice here that when I clicked on this, and let me pause the game for a moment. When I clicked on this, it opened up a window showing me several workers, or worker groups, in the buildings here. Each of these has a number of spaces that they can work, and so the reason it had me put down 36 is because we have 2 working groups that can handle 18 tiles worth of crops at a time, and you can hire more here. This is a very interesting aspect of this game that I think is going to take me a little while to get a hold of, because unlike, say, Zeus or Pharaoh, where the buildings just sort of have, 30 workers and then they fill in gradually, here you can more fine-tune, control the types of workers you have in a building and how many you have. So that's kind of cool. Okay, so on we go here. We unpause here and we just wait for them to do a thing. And then it's telling me now to build a couple bakeries. And so I guess this is something that we're learning a little bit back in here. A little bit as we go, that one field, or not one field, one farm of 2 fields can feed 2 bakeries. And then it wants me to build 2 warehouses, which is actually overkill, but we will do it. Okay, so now it wants me to set these warehouses specific to certain goods. And this is where it kind of gets like the Impressions games, where you can set the maximum number of goods you want in a warehouse, as well as which good in particular you will allow. So we will make that one for wheat, and this one will be for bread. There is no emptying, though, or apparently getting, from what I saw. Like, you can't prioritize, which I think I'm going to miss. But I also think this works a little bit differently. So one thing, while I had that window open here on these goods, is that you see that we also have a third work group, which are the haulers. So unlike, say, Pharaoh, Zeus, whatever, where you had to, or could, let the workers just go all the way across the map in order to get to where their destination was, these guys have a little bit. Oh, and before we finish that thought, I need to clamp this down because it only wants me to have 20 of each, so we don't need to be filling that up with everything. What was I saying? Yes. So each of the buildings now has its own workforce hauler with a limited range around that building, but it helps streamline the getting process, because this guy, for example, will take the goods that are collected here out, and then this guy will go get them. So, I mean, without the warehouses, I believe it would just directly go to the farm and get them, but this allows me to do a supply chain a little bit better, a little bit more fine-tuned, because now you can have a relay system where, say, you have the warehouse at the extremity of this guy's range, and then you could have your destination building at the extremity of their own range, which helps you spread that out a little bit, and then you don't have to worry about, this guy walking across the map, because one, he can't, but the setup is that they will now hand off goods, which is a vast improvement. Okay, yeah, so he is done with us, and we're just gonna, you can't right click these, so you have to go through here in order to get rid of them. There we go. Okay. So I could, to speed this up just a bit, build another farm, because through another crop cycle here, we are not going to have enough to fulfill this requirement. And actually pause for a minute, because we don't need them to be pulling this stuff in here. I believe he probably told me that there is a way to stockpile it and prevent that, and I was of course not paying attention whatsoever. That destroys all the goods. I definitely do not want that. Okay, well, I guess we'll just sit through it. These guys will fill up their supply here. I know there's a way to do this. Deactivate the building. Oh, there you go. Now, it's too late now. I mean, they've got their full supply of wheat. So, a little bit of it was wasted. 16, I mean, we would have been very close to fulfilling that. Oh, we actually don't have all of our bread. Okay, you can resume. I thought we did. Those stacks are slightly misleading, but I guess 5 times 4 is 20. The full thing right there. They're going a little bit slow. And of course we can speed that up. Okay, now I'm going to turn you off. And now we're just going to let whatever fill in here. Speeding through time as we are. We gotta wait another season. I should have built another farm. I knew this was gonna happen. I should have just built another farm. Gotta go through a whole nother growing season. Nice if I could just dump this. Okay, next mission. I think we can handle another one in here. We are now on to pre-pottery Neolithic B. Neolithic B was the culture of the Near East that followed pre-pottery Neolithic A. The people who lived in this period began intensively utilizing livestock, which became the primary livelihood for many. It is dated between approximately 8700 and 6500 BC. It's also the first culture in this area to feature rectangular houses. One important part of the house from this period is the flooring, which was made of white clay plaster from limestone. It is believed the use of clay plaster in the walls and floors led to this discovery of pottery. The first pre-pottery vessels that started to appear around 7000 BC were made from a mixture of lime and ash layered over baskets. We also see plastered human skulls in this period. These played an important role in funerals and demonstrate the great importance the people of this period assigned to burying their dead. At the same time, they are considered one of the first forms of art in the area and are also among the first historical examples of portraiture. This culture disappeared during the so-called 8.2 kiloyear event, a climactic event that lasted approximately 200 years and led to a sudden drop in global temperature. However, the general cultural development of the local inhabitants continued after the period ended. We now move down off the river to Tel Aswad. Tel Aswad was a large ancient settlement located about 50 kilometers from today's Damascus, Syria. The settlement was inhabited between 8700 and 7500 BC. The archaeological site was discovered in 1967 and has a diameter of approximately 250 meters. Tel Aswad offers an important window into Neolithic B and especially into how the organization of work and society progressed in this period. Lots of text. Okay. Push just that last. There we go. Okay, after a long search, you finally find a place suitable for your new settlement. In addition to fertile soil, there are also many grazing animals in the vicinity. In fact, seeing them, you begin to wonder whether hunting them is really the best one could do. Let's try something different. Welcome back. In this mission, I'll show you how to distribute goods and food to make you larger and more prosperous. Okay. We need to find the current needs of our houses, so we get to click on one, and right now we're just interested in this left part. Here you find the requirements for each available housing level. So at level 1, all they require is bread, and then to get to level 2, they'll require milk. All goods are distributed using sellers that work in markets. So we just now need to build ourselves a poor market. And this has range, and that blue range is the hauler range, I believe. Just like the farms. Now I'll tell you more about how the slots work. Okay, well, so this is kind of how I had described. We can add more workers here, and we will want to get new workers, one specifically for bread and one for milk. So this kind of is how the market squares work in Zeus and Emperor, where you can add different slots, but instead of having the big market area, it's just a little market square. And now we have to give them routes to walk, and this is something that is also very good that this game introduces. Okay, actually first I guess the tutorial wants me to supply before we go building the trade routes. Unlike the other games, this game does not have a roadblock system. So instead we can actually just draw the routes that our people walk, which is much nicer. Okay, we'll add that one, and then we will add, that is the wrong one. I'm going to mix that up the entire time we're playing this game, I guarantee. Okay, and then these guys are the livestock farm, and we now put down our pastures. You know what? I don't actually want that there. How do I demolish that one? Instead, put it on this side, because I can't get access to this side anyway. And then this will allow me to put stuff in the middle here, specifically warehouse. Okay, so we'll just plop a warehouse down right there, and this will, let's say, not take wheat. We don't actually need it. Alternatively, I could now that's 32. Yeah, we'll take just a very, very little amount of it. We then need to come into bakeries, and we can put down 2 bakeries. And that should give us the supply that we need. We let this go. So as you can see here, it's dropping it off at the warehouse, and then it's going straight into this. And now it wants me to look at statistics. How do we know when our production is covering our demand? This is a nice little bit here. Okay, get out of the way that way. We can see the current annual production and consumption, as well as the efficiency. Let's see. Let's go back to the warning that was popping up over there. It's basically just telling us they have no trade routes. But anyway, what it was saying about the production and consumption here. So you can see what it's currently doing and the annual estimate, in other words, the maximum that it can do here. So we see that we have, for example, wheat is producing 18. It is then consuming 18 at a maximum. So this is perfectly balanced, and the consumption is at almost 100% efficiency, meaning that we are consuming pretty much everything we are producing. The bread and milk, however, is a little bit different. You see that what we are currently at with levels, we have an 18 production and 16 consumption. So we're a little bit overproducing here, and here's the net sum over here. So efficiency is not as great as it could be, and even in production it's not as great as it could be. But this is going to be very useful, I think, for me to get sort of like the anno level of ratios for the buildings that I need. Anyway, so yes, let's go back and do what he's saying here. We need to now set those trade routes I had talked about. So we'll just grab the plus point here to add a checkpoint, and we'll say that'll be your first one, that'll be your second one. Number 3. Oh, okay, it didn't select the first one. Well, there you go then, number 3. And then it just loops back down around there. So that one is the first one. And then we don't have to do that on our own for this one if it's the same route, because according to this, we can just copy it. Now, this is a little bit tricky. Add a checkpoint. And I think I should have been. There we go. So you click on it showed that it should have been green, but you click on another flag, and you see hovering over there, it says that green shows you can copy that route. So when I had clicked this, that should have been green, indicating that I could copy it, which is what happened, but it just didn't have the colors. So anyway, we'll just now let that go. And let me... Okay. So we need to get up to 900 people. Let me go through this thing so we can get these annoying things out of the way. And we'll speed up. And you want... Let's speed this up even more. There we go. We don't have to worry about the roadblocks, because of that route. Okay, excellent. So, I guess this is probably good enough. We will continue on next time.